one or two more people joining us, so we're just waiting till they get on, and then we'll get started. Okay. There we go. So welcome everyone, and good morning. We were discussing the beauty and greatness of the teachings of Kabbalah and Hasidus, and what did it come to accomplish? What did the mystical teachings come to accomplish? I mean, we know that for thousands of years, Jews were Jewish. They were good Jews for many years. So why did we need to have Hasidus, Kabbalah, mystical parts of Torah? Why does that need to be revealed, especially in our generation, the generation before Mashiach? So today we're going to speak about a different point, a different angle of it. But first, a story of a story is in the old shtetl, the Jewish people, they weren't allowed to own property. That wasn't in the Pale of Settlement. There was sort of an arrangement for hundreds of years. The Jews in Poland and Russia and Lithuania and all those countries, it was one big area, but Jews were not allowed to own any property. And it's interesting, that's how Jews got into other businesses. We got into the hotel business, we got into the money lending business. You know, people say, Jews are money lenders. It wasn't by choice. It was, we opened the banking business because we weren't allowed on land. So it was brought upon us. And Baruch Hashem, the Jews get very good in banking and hotels and everything, which was not everything besides for owning property. So a Jew had to was answerable to the landowners of those days. That they were like the big shots. They were in Hebrew they're called the poritz, or in Yiddish the poritz. The poritz, everybody, the poritz, you got to watch out for him. He's the landowner. It's called the feudal system of the feudal landowners. So they owned the property, and the Jew would have a hotel or an inn or a tavern. In those days, that's what the Jews would have, and they would make a little parnasa. And these feudal landowners, they were like very, very wealthy, and they had tons of money, and they were very bored. And so they used to be involved, like they had a lot of sports, different sports that they had. One of the favorite sports that these landowners had was they would have bear wrestling. In Russia, each landowner would get their own bear. A bear is B-E-A-R, not B-E-E-R, B-E-A-R, right? They would each one would get a powerful bear, and they would train them, and then the bears would wrestle with each other, and whoever won the wrestling match would be the winner. And till finally they went to the end, they would have the Super Bowl of bear wrestling, or the World Series of bear wrestling. It was a whole thing that went on. The olden days, don't ask any questions what goes on then. So it's a story of one landowner. He wasn't so wealthy, and he couldn't get a hold of a bear on time. So what did he do? He decided, he can't get a real bear. So he'll get what he called the Jewish bear. What's the Jewish bear? He has a guy, Moishke, the Jewish guy that's behind on rent for a couple of months, and so he's gonna buy a bear costume, a bear skin, and Moshe is going to go in the bear skin, and he's going to go out and wrestle the real bear. So even if he loses, he couldn't care less. If he loses, at least he doesn't look like a fool that he doesn't have a bear on the field in the stadium. So he goes to Moshe. So Moshe, you haven't paid your rent for 3-4 months. I've decided that you need to help me out. Moshe says, what? He says, I need you to be my bear. Moshe knew exactly what it was. He explained to him. He said, you have to get into a bear costume, go out on the stadium and wrestle a real live bear. Moshe said, this is the end of everything. But he had no choice. He had to do what he had to do to make so at least his family can survive. So he went to his wife, his kids, told them what was happening, and he went and went to the Poritz on the fateful day. Poritz, the landowner, gave him this bear costume. He got inside the bear costume, and the bell rings, and Moshe pushed out. And next thing he knows, he's out in the middle of the field over there, eyeball to eyeball, with this ferocious looking bear. The other side, from the other landowner, he's looking at him. He looks so mean and so ferocious. He doesn't know what he's gonna. How is he ever gonna beat the other bear? It's humanly impossible, right? Go fight a colossal bear. So Moshe goes out and he makes believe that he's like as if he's a bear. He goes out and does his job, and then he's right by the bear, right, and almost in the arms of the other bear. What does a Jew do when he's really in trouble? He screams out to the Rabbi Shalom. He says, Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. Hear, O Israel, the Lord is our God, the Lord is one. And the other bear responded, Baruch Shem Kevod Machuto Li'alam Va'ed. The second bear responded, I guess the second bear must have been Jewish too. So yeah, and then they knew that they were both, they just made they made believe they were playing, and that's the end of the story. But the reason why I tell you this story, I think it's quite an important story, that when two Jewish people, two good people, come to each other, they look at each other, externally, people sometimes look like polar bears, like grizzly bears, that's massive bears. And you give a look at the external, it looked like something that's unsurmountable. But if you shout out Shema Yisrael, if you dig deep down to the Jewishness, you'll find that deep down there's something very soft and something very beautiful and something very holy behind the surface. It's one of the things that Chabad people know how to do is when many times you go out to try to put on tefillin on people on the street or the plane or wherever. The first question they ask you, are you Jewish? Excuse me, sir, are you Jewish? It's quite a hard question for many Jews to absorb, but it's very, very, it digs deep down. You ask a Jew, are you Jewish? I found many times that when you ask a Jew if they're Jewish, they get all defensive. It's the Jewish. What do you mean? What's it your business? Who cares? What's you know what I mean? Maybe I am, maybe I'm not. What do you care? I used to get all these funny responses from the Jews. But when I approached a Gentile would say, "Oh wow, I look Jewish." You know what I mean? No, thank you so much. Thank you for the compliment. The Gentiles are happy about the question of are you Jewish? The Jews, they're all like, why is that? Because a Jew, that question digs deep into their conscience. And when you ask a Gentile, they like it. They like you think that they're Jewish. Beautiful. But a Jew, if you say they're Jewish, right away it's like guilt. It's all the guilt of the last 50, 60, 70 years comes out in one shot with the question, are you Jewish? Because we believe that there is, and this is something that Kabbalah and Chassidus revealed, is that there is a conscious level and a subconscious. So Jewish people, we have the conscious level of our Jewishness, and then there is subconscious level of Jewishness. And that's very deep. It's very profound. It's very somewhere deep inside it's passed on from our parents, from our grandparents. Some people call guilt. but I don't think it's guilt. It's something much deeper. It's the covenant with God. It's being God's chosen people. It's the Jewishness that's inside of us, and sometimes we don't even know how to handle it because it's such a deep, profound part of us that many Jews are like uncomfortable with it. We once, many years ago in Israel, there was a great chassid. It was Goldie's great uncle. His name was Mendel Futterfass. He was a guy that came out of Russia. He was in the Gulag for like 15, 20 years for spreading Yiddishkeit there. And he was a very beloved old man with a long white beard. Everybody loved Rav Mendel. They knew him as Rav Mendel. He used to wear a casquette, like all those Russian hats. He didn't wear the regular rabbinical hats because they never told him when you come, you lived so long as a refusnik in Russia and living in the Gulag, keep your Russian identity. So he continued to wear his Russian cap, like a Russian casquette. He's a guy with a long white beard. Goldie's great uncle. I used to talk to him many times if I would hang with him. Like a very endearing guy, and he became later in his old age. He used to be a businessman, but then became a mashpia, like a teacher for the young people in Kfar Chabad in Israel. And on Fridays in the yeshiva, they used to go out to the train station over there and put on tefillin with people. So Rav Mendel one time says, "I'll come also." So he went, came along. So they said, Rav Mendel, you can't speak Hebrew like the modern Hebrew. You speak so don't worry, leave it to me. I still speak. I speak Hebrew, but maybe not the modern Hebrew. So he went with the guy, and this guy was trying to get a fellow to put on tefillin. So Rav Mendel says, "Leave it to me." He doesn't speak a fancy Hebrew, but it's fancy Ivrit. He goes over the guy and he says, "Ani Yehudi, ata Yehudi. I Jew, you Jew. I Jew, you Jew. Tefillin." And it worked like wonders. You see an old man come to you and say, "I Jew, you Jew." That worked. What is that about it? It was something that he was able to tap into sometimes you speak to a person philosophy, all kinds of deep concepts, explain the history of the world and tell them everybody why you should do mitzvah. Sometimes you just say, "I Jew, you Jew. I tefillin, you tefillin." That's what you say. I Jew, you Jew. I tefillin, you tefillin. And that digs down to the deepest parts of our soul. It goes beyond the bear suit, beyond the bear costume, and it goes deep down. And that, I think, is one of the biggest revolutions of the Kabbalah and the Hasidic movement. Was the first one to start the Hasidic movement was a Jew named the Baal Shem Tov. And the Baal Shem Tov taught 200-300 years ago. He taught that it makes no difference how observant a Jew is, or how many mitzvahs they do, or how much the Jewishness is there. It's somewhere deep inside. Sometimes you can't even see it, but it's there. It's there just as much as it is by anybody else. Until that point, Baal Shem Tov came, people used to judge people, how much knowledge they have, what kind of scholar they are, how many mitzvahs they do. And the Baal Shem Tov taught, no. Judaism belongs to every single Jew, no matter how much they do. Even a simple, in the olden days, a simple farmer, he said, that barely can read Hebrew. He is as Jewish as the biggest scholar that knows all the pages of the Talmud by heart. This was the revolution of the Baal Shem Tov. At that time, going back 300 years ago, there was a big divide in the Jewish community. There was a group of the Talmudic scholars, and then there were the simple Jews. And the simple Jews were sort of excommunicated, not by any design, but just simply because they didn't know how to learn, they didn't know how to read, they couldn't go to shul. They could read barely a few words here and there. There was a lot of ignorance in those days. And so the learned Jews separated themselves from the simple Jews. And the Baal Shem Tov came and said, no, it's not the way it is. You need to look a little bit beneath the surface and to understand what the essence of Jewishness is. You know, a few years ago, I remember there was this young man. He was a journalist. I think it was for the Washington Post. And he was in Afghanistan. His name was Pearl. What was his first name? Remember? Huh? Daniel Pearl. Thank you. I can see your lips moving. Daniel Pearl. Yeah. So here we have a mamish, a guy also, he wasn't a religious Jew by the farthest stretch of the imagination. He barely knew what it meant that he was Jewish, but he was a good journalist, and he was out in Afghanistan, and they kidnapped him and they got him, and then they put a knife to his neck. Tragic story, and they asked him to say his last words. And what was his last words? It is, I, Daniel Pearl, I am Jewish. My parents are Jewish. And I lived and I'll die as a Jew. Now, you wonder, those were his last words before they executed him. You wonder, like, what gets into a guy that he's going there. He's a good journalist. He's works for the Washington Post. What gets into a guy to say those kind of words? But when the knife is at the neck, and they put to you the gun to your head, what comes out is, I'm a Jew. I'm a Jew. My parents are Jewish, and I believe in the mission of the Jewish people. Incredible story. Because here he had, like I say, he wasn't a religious guy at all. He had no religion, no background, nothing. But it came to that moment, his Yiddishkeit shined out. He realized he was being killed because he had a connection to the Jewish people, to Israel, whatever it was, right? It all came to the surface. So what is the greatest proof of Jewishness? Is the Jewishness that comes out in the ultimate test. Who are we when we're put to that final moment in our life? Who are we? And I see many times, I go to the hospital to visit people, to say the last prayers with them, right? Last prayers, no. People call me in. Sometimes I go on my own. If somebody's dying, I go to the hospital, and if they're still in sound mind, I say some prayers with them. Sometimes they're atheist. Sometimes they're you know what I mean. They never had any religion in their life. But somehow it's a funny thing that when you're faced with your mortality, suddenly everybody becomes religious. As they say, there are no atheists in a foxhole. In war, when people the last minute, they feel suddenly everybody becomes religious. Why is that? Your whole life you were an avid atheist. You never believed in anything. You rejected God, rejected everything. You believed that we come from monkeys, but last minute, maybe some people just want to hedge their bets, just in case, just in case there's something on the other side. I don't want to take a chance, right? Could be that, but they don't hedge their bets the other way. It's interesting. They hedge their bets that their Jewishness and their belief in God and Shema Yisrael. That's what they hedge their bets on. It's a very interesting thing. I expected over the years to get more rejections, like say, Rabbi, not interested in Shema Yisrael. I thought I'd get a few more, though. I never get it. They're always ready to say a prayer. People are always ready to say a prayer. Maybe because like at the end of time, like a lot of people, they tell me they see their mother, they see their father. It's like a common thing. People at the last minute, they're always seeing their parents or their grandparents. There are similar visions. I don't know. Like I think scientists talk about it. Why is that? Like in the end, you see your mother coming or your father coming, and they're stretching out their hands to you. Everybody has the same kind of visions. So some say that it's sort of a psychological thing. I believe that it's a truth. They come. They are there. They're in the room. They're in the room, yeah. They're coming to receive the soul. The soul that's leaving, they're coming to receive the. So inside each and every one of us, there is that spark of Yiddishkeit, and that is what Hasidus and Kabbalah came to reveal. That is layers and layers of Jewishness, but deep down inside, every person has in the level of subconscious. The Freud, he spoke a lot about the conscious mind, the subconscious mind. I know Freud's subconscious was maybe about sex, sexual stuff he has back there, right? But we as Jews, we also believe in a subconscious, but we believe that subconscious is about inner meaning. It's about our Jewishness. It's purpose in life. Those are the things we have beneath the surface. Actually, Freud calls it he calls it the id, the ID. He calls that part that's way back in the recesses of our mind. He calls it the id. I call it the yid. YID. Not the id, but the yid. The yid is the part of ourself, the subconscious of who we are. So we have to just find the inner yid, the inner Jewishness, that subconscious self that we have, and that I believe is what the Baal Shem Tov came, and the Shem Bayachai, and all the Kabbalists, the teachers of Kabbalah, came to teach us that our Jewishness is not just our actions. But it's a state of being. It's what we are and who we are and how we came into the world. God chose us, and that impacted our soul. By God's choice, for whatever reason. Why did God choose the Jews? I don't know. There's a famous jingle. How odd of God to choose the Jews. And then the jingle finishes. It's not so odd the Jews chose God. How odd of God to choose the Jews. Nobody understands why exactly. I don't know. Yes. But we have this thing inside us, the chosen people thing, right? And this divinity, this godliness, this neshama, the soul that God gave us by choosing us, he sort of did something to us on the inside. And we've been carrying this sort of mission, or some people call, like I say, some people might call guilt. We have this inner mission inside of us that's like driving us to try to change the world and make the world a better place. This comes from Hashem. And so they say, how odd of God to choose the Jews. It's not so odd the Jews chose God. So it's a symbiotic relationship. It's a relationship that we put forth to God, and God puts forth to us. But that is who we are and what we are. So every single person, every single human being has layers and layers and layers, especially with the Jewish people, there's layers and layers. And never look at the surface. Never look at the surface. So Hashem should bless us all. We should try to understand. This was one of the, like I say, one of the developments or of the Hasidus and the Kabbalah movement is to reveal the inside of the Jew and to realize it's not a bear, but there's a person inside the bear. There's a Jew inside there. There's Shema Yisrael inside every Jew, and you need to just reveal that. Many years ago, after the Holocaust, they wanted to find out where the Jewish children are left over. After the Holocaust, there were, 1 million Jews were murdered. 1 million Jewish children were murdered in the Holocaust. Maybe more, maybe 1.2. Children, little kids. So there were hardly any Jewish children left after the Holocaust. It's like crazy. All the kids, they were the first that the Nazis sent to the gas chambers, right? Weren't many Jewish children left, but there were some Jewish children that were sent off to the monasteries, the convents, and they were adopted by some of the Christian nuns in these places, and to their credit, they saved the Jewish kids. I mean, they might have had an ulterior motive. They were hoping maybe to make the Jewish kids a Christian, and they were able to keep them away, keep them out of the monasteries, the Nazis, and these kids survived. So after the Holocaust, there were a group of rabbis that went from one monastery to the next to find wherever they heard that there might be a Jewish children. They would come to the Mother Superior and the nuns and say, give us the Jewish. They say, no, we don't think there's any Jewish children here. So they said, no, there's so many Jews in the city, there must be Jews here. And the Mother Superior would say, nah, can you prove it? The rabbi said, yeah, I can prove it. His name was Rabbi Laser Silver. He was a very famous rabbi from America. He said, yeah, I can prove it. They said, how do you prove it? He says, I want to come into the room where all the kids go to sleep. They had this massive dormitory where they had beds and beds, children. He says, let me come into that room before the kids go to sleep, and I'll prove to you without a shadow of a doubt that these kids are Jewish. So they come in there, and all the kids are just lying there in bed. They just, it's like lights out, and they're all about to go to sleep. The rabbi tells them, the Mother Superior says, watch this. He starts to sing Shema Yisrael. He starts to sing Shema Yisrael in the room. Shema Yisrael, Hashem, Hashem Echad. And suddenly from the corners of the room you hear, Tata, Mama, Daddy, Mommy, where are you? Kids, they remembered that prayer was embedded in their heads from when they were little kids going to sleep. The mother would sing to them these songs. So the nun said, the Mother Superior would say, I guess, Rabbi, I can't argue with you. It shows that they're Jewish. And many, many children returned back to their families as a result of that. But that's the point is, so little kids, they're not philosophers, they're not everything, but they have that Shema Yisrael that's embedded in their soul from when they're very little kids. And that's what proved their identity, their Jewishness. So the Jewish part of the Jew is not always so revealed. You just need to know how to stir it up, wake it up a little bit. You wake it up, it's very, very powerful. That's what we try to do on a regular basis, to try to find the Jewishness within every Jew. And through that, we'll surely, or by understanding the indestructible nature of that soul, that Jewish Pintele Yid, as they call it. It's important. Merit the coming of Mashiach Tzidkeinu. Any questions, anybody? Question? Yeah, go ahead. Sonia.
I just like to share with you In 1966, in a communist Czechoslovakia, it was very difficult to even say that we are Jewish. We used to hide our Jewishness. And I was very fortunate to give a permission to visit United States of America for 6 months. And during that trip, I was invited to United Nations to speak on behalf of the youth. And when you walked in at that time to the area where they welcomed you, there was a questionnaire or a document that you were supposed to fill in. And for the first time in my life, there was a question of religion. Who are you? And when it came to religion, my hands started to shake, and I was obviously very nervous and beside myself, but I signed Jewish. Oh. For the first time in my life, I was able publicly to declare that I'm Jewish. Oh. And the people, the staff around me, they hugged me, they celebrated with me, and it was a major change in my life.
Wow. Wow.
Wow.
Wow, beautiful, beautiful. You know that, yeah, it's something that you don't know when it's going to come out. It's like, and you at that moment you experienced the Jewishness that was coming. It came out from you don't even know from where, because like you say, you didn't grow up with that so much, because you weren't allowed to practice or do anything Jewish, but it came from the fountain of the same place that came by Daniel Pearl. That same neshama. Yeah. And beautiful story. Thank you so much for sharing that, son.
Thank you for listening, for allowing me.
Okay. Okay, everybody. Thank you very much. Have a great Shabbos.
Thank you, Rabbi. Shabbat shalom to everybody.
We have tomorrow the pre-Shabbos program. If anyone would like to come, you're welcome at 5:30 tomorrow. Okay. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.